Robert Kiyosaki interviews J.B. Tucker on what real money is. And here is my perspective on their talking points.
Oh, hello. Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And this show is really about real money. It's really about real money. It's about gold.
If you guys are not familiar with Robert's perspective on gold and fiat currency, which is paper money, Robert thinks that fiat currency is fake money because fiat currency takes little manufacturing resources to be produced and it has little intrinsic value. For instance, a $100 bill only costs about 15 cents to produce, where on the other hand, an ounce of gold costs about $1,000 to $1,100 in manufacturing costs. So this is the distinction between fiat currency and precious metals. Gold, real money.
1964, I started collecting silver because I noticed there was a copper tinge around dimes and quarters. And it's called Gresham's Law. Gresham's Law states was when phony money enters the system, real money goes into hiding.
Yeah, 1964, I was already collecting silver and gold coins that time. No, I wasn't. I was born in 1989 in Austria, and until the year 2000, we had silver coins. We had the 5 shilling, the 10 shilling, 25 shilling, and 100 shilling silver coins. And it was beautiful. You grabbed the coin, and you actually knew that you had something valuable in your hands. But today, when you grab a coin, you grab a bill, it feels like nothing because it is nothing. It has zero intrinsic value. It doesn't worth anything. The government can print it out of thin air. So I would love to see us go back to like a silver standard, a gold standard. God, it would be beautiful.
And then in 1971, August 15th, President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. Of course, I didn't hear about it because he is Tricky Dick.
Yeah, President Nixon, you screwed up the whole country, you tricky. The gold standard was a monetary system in the United States that linked the value of fiat currency directly with the reserve of gold available. So the government could not lend or borrow money that was not backed by gold. So it was limited in the amount of dollar bills it could produce at any given time.
But I was flying in Vietnam when I realized that I didn't know anything about gold.
All right, Robert, I think I'm going to get this one. I was in Vietnam, not at the time you were there, but in 2013, and I wasn't flying any helicopters, I wasn't doing any military stuff, but I was out there. And at that time, I was younger than you when you got to Vietnam. I already knew more about gold and silver than you did.
So I tried to negotiate this Vietnamese woman, the cutest little thing, her bright red teeth, because they chew betel nuts.
Young Vietnamese women with red teeth chewing betel nuts? I've been in Vietnam in 2013. I have no seen such thing, Robert. I think you made this one up.
Laughed at my partner, not my co-pilot, and she goes, Spot. I said, what is spot? And I was being educated. And what I found out a few days later, that spot means that's the price of gold all over the world. I mean, price has a uniform, gold has a uniform price, which means it's real money. Then I realized that's God's money. You know, if I get the atomic number and silver has an atomic number, the US dollar doesn't.
So yeah, the gold spot price is how much an ounce of gold is trading at right now. And this amount obviously fluctuates a lot depending on how much demand there is, how much selling pressure there is, but it's an accurate measurement of the current price of gold. It's called spot price.
I also started a gold mine in China. They took that. And I started a silver mine in South America. I still have that one.
He just said it. Just like that. The Chinese take everything. They took his gold mine. My ex was Chinese. She took everything I had. Don't put any money into China. Don't start a gold mine in China. Makes sense. Don't even invest in stocks in China with a Chinese bank in China. If you do that, make sure you have a foreign account other than a Chinese bank account. It's not good. The Chinese take everything.
What's real and what's fake? And the US dollar is as fake as it comes. So what is your background? What got you interested in gold?
Well, it's in the book. I talk about how I first got interested at $300 an ounce. I remember saying to my father, "I think I'll get an ounce of gold," and he's like, "Why would you want that? What are you going to do? Buy groceries with that? I mean, it's functionally
That was
irrelevant." And it
2000, right?
was 2000. Yeah,
Those of you who are not familiar with the development of gold over the past 20 years, like what it was, I mean, have a look at this chart. In the year of 2000, you were able to purchase an ounce of gold for just $300. And today, an ounce of gold is trading at $1,700. Meaning, if you would have bought 50 ounces of gold, you would have had a massive increase in value over the past 2 decades. In fact, you would have made over 500% on your investment. Gold has even outperformed the S&P 500 over the past decade. It's done extremely well.
there's not a lot of point in saving if you get no interest and you lose 5% a year to inflation. I mean, you start looking at the system that we live in, and the war is against your wealth, and that's what we want people to see.
I think that's a very accurate statement because if you save money, your bank doesn't pay you interest anymore. It's not like 20, 30, 40 years ago when you were getting anywhere from 7 to 15% annually for the money that you had in your bank account. Nowadays, you get zero. Another thing to consider is if you are an entrepreneur, then it does make sense to have more savings because you don't know if your business falls apart, leaving you without any cash flow. So you need to have some reserves if you are an entrepreneur. But if you are an employee, well, you also need savings, but it always depends on your current situation.
And it's getting hard. I couldn't even buy silver the other day. I mean, this is 2021.
Well, what does that tell you?
Supplies are gone.
That's right.
And plus they're suppressing the prices.
People don't know this.
The prices.
Yeah, they don't understand how this works, Robert. Well, for specifics, just to back you up so you don't sound like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist, they traded 1.7 times the annual supply of silver in one day in order to keep the price down.
You know, and so you idiots out there saving US dollars or pesos or yen or euro, get E.B. Tucker's book, Why Gold, Why Now? Because you're getting screwed. I mean, like when people argue about gold over Bitcoin, I just quote, Yogi Berra. When you come to the fork in the road, take all three.
When you come to the fork in the road, take all three. Well, it's not a very good analogy because you could only really choose one path, one road, right? But I think what he's trying to say is you want to be well diversified. Now, with Bitcoin, it's probably a more speculative asset than gold, meaning it fluctuates a lot because it's speculative in nature. People don't buy Bitcoin for everyday life purposes. And in fact, Bitcoin, as of this time, as of this date, does not have a lot of utility. So the price fluctuates a lot because people are gambling. People are hoping that they're going to be able to make money from their Bitcoin holdings. Same holds true for other altcoins, other cryptocurrencies. On the other hand, if you take a look at gold and silver, gold has been money for thousands of years, and the market capitalization is 10 times higher than the one of Bitcoin. Silver is more of a commodity. Silver is an industrial metal. Silver can also be an investment depending on how you store it, where you store it, how you buy it. You don't want to buy it in a country where you have to pay VAT, where you have to pay sales tax. You don't want to do that. So there's a lot to consider. I'd also suggest, just like Robert and T.B. Tucker, to have all three. Have cryptocurrencies, have gold, silver, but I would not put all of your money or most of your money into cryptocurrencies because of its speculative nature. So you have a smaller percentage, maybe that's depending on your risk tolerance, maybe 2 to 10% of your money in cryptocurrencies. And you have another, whatever feels comfortable for you, percent in gold and silver. Now, I'm heavily invested in all three. In fact, I have the majority of my net worth in those three. So it's up to you, whatever you want to do, but know the risks. It's not like you want to hold all three. You don't want to have an equal position in all three. Depends on your age, depends on your goals. There's a lot to consider.
So can you give a quick scenarios how they keep the price manipulated?
When you see the price of silver trade, like on this Bloomberg screen behind me, you're not actually seeing the physical price of silver. You're seeing a contract for future silver delivery, which will never happen. It will be settled in dollars. And so the guys in New York are able to sell an unlimited amount of those contracts into the market and settle those in dollars. It's called the futures market. Now, you don't see this with copper, which is at an all-time high. It's been running all year because we're experiencing big inflation. You don't see this with lumber. Have you bought a 2x4 recently? I have. The price is doubled. So all of the things that we buy that we need are going up in price, but the metals are different because it's in the government's best interest to keep the price down. And so you create financial products called futures that you're able to unload into the market to keep the price down. And that's creating a difference between the gold price and other commodities. It distracts people. Now, Bitcoin is, to your point, is great, but Bitcoin is not digital gold because gold is not physical Bitcoin. These two things are not interchangeable. They're very different. So people ask all the time, should I buy one or the other? It's not like that. That's not the case. You know, these are two very different things, and they should be looked at differently.
Said it well. You want to educate yourself about what you invest before you invest in it. You don't want to be, like you said, a fool investing in something that you don't understand, because that's a recipe for disaster. That's how you lose money. So educate yourself, become knowledgeable, become versed, which will take time, you need experience, but understand that investing is a learning curve. You're not going to start investing knowing everything there is. So give yourself time and read up on whatever you want to invest your money in.
Yeah, and so there's differences between silver, gold, and Bitcoin, and they're all significant differences. And, you know, if I told you today you could buy Bitcoin at $5, would you say, I'll think about it?
Buy the rumors and sell the news. That's what you want to do, not the other way around. You want to buy when something is low, and you want to sell it when it's high, when everybody's talking about it, when you hear it mentioned in the news. That's usually the time when you want to sell, because it really gives an accurate indication of how big something has become. And that's usually when the bubble bursts as well.
But that's what we're saying is happening with silver and gold right now, because it's manipulated. Anything you want to say about that?
All you have to do is buy an ounce of gold. You'll see. You know, when you call the dealer, they say, I'm sorry, it'll be the summertime before you can get it. It'll be $2,000. That tells you all you need to know. So it's kind of like you go to get a Mercedes and it should be 100,000 and it's 70. Are you upset? No, you're thrilled. But for some reason, when you see gold in that condition, you say, I don't know if I trust that. People get discouraged when they see low prices in gold, but it should be the opposite. When you see an asset and you understand and you've read my book and you know how this works, you should be thrilled to see the gold price held down. And that's the government finally doing something for you that's helpful. So that's how people should look at it once they can see the full picture.
But it's even worse than that, is because I took a friend of mine down to Argentina, because this guy is, you know, highly educated, very successful and all this, but he is old school. And I took him to Argentina to meet my friend, who was an engineer, electrical engineer in Argentina. He had a electrical engineering firm. He said he saved US dollars. He had $1 million US in the bank in Argentina. And then one day the bank told him, they said that we took your money. And they said, oh, don't worry, we'll give you $1 million in Argentine peso or whatever they trade in.
Yep, peso. That's right.
And so I took and he said, do you have any advice? He says, if I had plata or oro, you know, which is gold or silver, and I had outside the country, I would be okay. But because I had everything inside the banking system of Argentina, and worst of all in US dollars, and they exchange it for pesos, I'm trapped. I can't get out of this country because the economy collapsed.
I can really relate to what has been said here, because as a resident of the United States, I already find it very challenging to get foreign bank accounts or to get any kind of financial account in a different country. They don't like US citizens, they don't like US residents, because the US government is very strict when it comes to regulating its citizens. And most governments, most financial institutions that are based abroad, they don't want to cause any problems. They don't want to get into trouble. And that's why they usually prohibit Americans and US residents from joining their websites.
Yep. No, I was there in with Christina was running the country.
Oh, she's
and
wonderful.
I was there, and this adds to what you're saying, is that when I used a credit card to pay for the hotel, it was an 8-to-1 exchange rate. But my friend showed me a little store around the corner where it was 12-to-1. But then my other friend had a guy that would bring the pesos on a moped at 16-to-1. So you had the blue market and the black market. And so you had to break the law to get the proper exchange rate. I mean, then it went up to something like 80-to-1 after she left and they got rid of that. But what people don't understand is that the government's in charge of these things. And so you want something that's outside of the system. People say, well, Bitcoin's outside of the system. Okay, maybe, but you have to be connected to a digital network in order to transact. So it's actually quite easy to restrict and control and tax the Bitcoin transactions. Whereas when you hold an ounce of gold, you're holding that money that you're talking about, that wealth, in the palm of your hand. And there's no way to track or trace that. You can melt it down. You can make a belt buckle or a necklace or gold teeth out of it, whatever you want.
I think the main issue with having cryptocurrencies stored on a US exchange is that with many exchanges, like for instance Robinhood, you're actually not allowed to transfer your cryptocurrencies out of your Robinhood account, meaning you can only buy or sell the cryptocurrency on the Robinhood exchange. And I know that other US exchanges operate by the same policy. So if you want to be well diversified, and I'm not endorsing this because it's not in the interest of the government, but you have to know for yourself what's best for you. You have to know how you can secure your own future. So if you want to have, for instance, cryptocurrencies and you want to make sure that nobody has access to those cryptocurrencies, obviously you have to report any profit that you make when you buy or sell cryptocurrencies on your tax return. That's your responsibility. But if you want to do that, then you can store your cryptocurrencies on an exchange that will allow you to do that. Or what you can also do is you can store them on a hardware wallet. I'll research that topic, but this was a really great interview and I hope you enjoyed my analysis. And if you did, I'd appreciate if you hit the like button for the YouTube algorithm. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. And subscribe now and turn on alerts so you receive a notification when I uploaded the next video on cryptocurrencies, precious metals, and other financial topics. I see you on the next video.